Hello, my name is David Arbogast. I'm a certified workshop leader in the intensive journal program at Dialogue House. And I'll be your guide as we explore some of the exercises from the Life Context workshop, one of 3 modules in the intensive journal program. We hope that this activity will stimulate your interest in the journal, but more importantly, that you will discover some insights about yourself that the intensive journal is designed to elicit. I'll also be giving you a little background about the journal, how it came to be, and what its theoretical underpinnings are in the field of holistic depth psychology. You're going to need some supplies, a half dozen sheets of paper, a favorite writing tool, a pen or a pencil perhaps. You're also going to need a timer because I will be stopping the video from time to time, asking you to set the timer and then begin writing an activity and keep going with that until your timer goes off. The timer on your phone will work well. You want to be sure though that you set your phone on do not disturb or silence it so that you're not disturbed while you're writing. You're also going to want to locate yourself in a place where you won't be disturbed and where there's silence. We do our work in an atmosphere of silence in the intensive journal, and we do it in a continuous manner. So I'm also going to ask that you, once you begin the exercises, you work through all of them that we'll be doing today at one sitting. So I will pause now while you gather your materials, get yourself into a comfortable place where you won't be disturbed. And when you're ready, resume the video and we'll begin our work. Okay, the intensive journal was developed by Dr. Ira Progoff, who was a psychologist who practiced in New York. He had attended Brooklyn College and then served in the United States Army during World War II. He traveled to Switzerland to study with the renowned psychologist Carl Jung, many of whose ideas had a profound impact on Progoff's thinking. And when Progoff eventually wrote 3 books on the field of holistic depth psychology, we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But he began his private practice when he returned to New York. And he discovered the value of writing, the value of having his clients write and keep journals. Over a period of time, he developed a series of writing activities, one building upon the other, that eventually became the intensive journal. He worked with these with various audiences in workshops until he honed and perfected the method. And then he founded Dialogue House, which is the institution that carries on his work. For over 50 years now, Dialogue House has been sponsoring intensive journal workshops throughout the United States and around the world. Holistic depth psychology is a theory that understands human experience to exist on many levels, many depths, if you will. We're all familiar with the waking experience, what we're doing right now, verbal thinking, talking, what most of our experience is. We're also familiar with a deeper level of experience when we dream. We have these bizarre narratives that come to us, often laden with strong feelings, and we're asleep. We wake up, we may recall the dream, we may not, but it soon vanishes. And it's like we have another level down there that's operating separately from our waking level. One of the principles of depth psychology is that it's not really operating separately. The two are conjoined and contribute to our whole personalities. There are other depths. Imagination can be one, especially the kind we have when we're not aware we're doing it. I think we're all familiar with sitting at a traffic light or sitting watching television and suddenly discovering that we've been daydreaming. Well, that's coming from a little deeper level than what we're doing consciously. And it usually, when we realize we're doing that, we have to deliberately bring our minds back to what it is we are doing in the waking moment. Sometimes we have just fleeting memories of past events or strange images that present themselves to us that seem to come from nowhere. They come from a level of depth, a level of thinking, really, that Progoff called the twilight imagery range. We're not really asleep. We're not totally conscious of what we're doing, but something's going on in the background there. And it's also connected with our whole personalities. There are even greater depths than those I've mentioned, and the intensive journal has methods for accessing those. The whole purpose is to integrate them, to make a whole of them, hence holistic depth psychology. We want to feel whole. We want to resolve the conflicting impulses and feelings and motivations that we feel. And bringing those together, allowing us to integrate them, can lead to greater creativity and greater satisfaction in living. And that's the purpose of the intensive journal process. We're going to begin our work by entering into a quiet state, a twilight state, if you will. Progoff wrote a series of entrance meditations, is what he called them. They're short poems that help us enter into an atmosphere of silence and perhaps the twilight range below the level of fully awake awareness. So I'm going to read one to you, and what I want you to do first is take a sheet of paper and write at the top the words entrance meditation and put today's date. We always date our exercise activities. Then I'm going to ask that you close your eyes, but have your pen handy and relax. Listen to the meditation, but allow your mind to go where it will as you're listening, to enter the twilight state. And when I'm done reading, and you'll know I'm done when you hear the words in the silence, I want you to take 2 minutes to record on that paper whatever occurred to you while you were listening to the entrance meditation. So, the one that I'm going to read is an activity, or rather a meditation that Progoff titled Muddy, Clear, the Mirror of the Water. So let's close our eyes, relax, and enter the meditation and the atmosphere of the journal. I remember the saying of the old wise man, Lao Tzu, muddy water, let stand, becomes clear. Thinking of that, I look within myself. I see on the screen of my mind's eye a stream of water, moving, swirling, murky. It is full of things. I cannot look into this water. I cannot see my reflection in this water. Now the movement stops. The water is in one place. It is heavy colored, muddy, but it is becoming quiet. The water is at rest. In its stillness, the muddiness is settling to the bottom. At the surface, it becomes clear, transparent. I can see into the water more and more. Now I can see through to the very depth of it. There it shines and it reflects. The heavens are reflected in the quiet water. It is clear. I see the reflection of a tree in the quiet water. The muddy water has become clear. As I continue to look into the stillness, a reflection of myself begins to appear. Deep in the quietness of the water, I see a reflection of myself. Myself in many different forms. I sit in the stillness and let the image shape itself. It becomes many things. Many images appear in the still water. Many things come up for me to see. In the depth of the water, the images that open the greatest vision within me are not those that are visible. I do not see them. I just know them. Something within me recognizes them in the still water. The muddy water has become quiet. I sit gazing into it, seeing images, visible and invisible, letting them take form, letting them change and reform themselves in the depth of the still water, in the mirror of the water, in the depth of myself, moving, moving, in the silence, in the silence. Set your timer for 2 minutes, pause the video, and record now what occurred to you while you were listening to the entrance meditation. We want to begin our work in the journal with describing what's going on in our lives now, today, in this period of our lives. What does it feel like in our lives now? We all go through different periods in our lives. We know that. I can imagine myself sitting in school in the 3rd grade in the back of the classroom. And in a sense, I'm still that person, but I'm very different now than I was then. I've aged. My concerns are different. My relationships, I don't know any of those people anymore. And yet within me, I feel a sense of continuity. And the same is true for later in my life. When I started my first job with the Dove Roofing Company in high school, when I got married after college, when I decided on what my career would be, when my first grandchild was born. And I'm in a period of my life now that's different from all of those. So the first thing we want to do is ask ourselves, what period of our lives are we in now? And we think about, when did this period of our life begin? Did it begin with some event, some triggering event that happened maybe 7 months ago or 2 years ago? Or has it been a period that seems to have no big events? It's sort of marked by a kind of biding time, treading water. You want to think back on your current period of your life. Think about, when did this period of my life begin? And what are the big contours, the feeling contours during this time of my life? Again, we're going to look at the big picture, and we're going to do it from an interior perspective. Not get into any specific detail. That will come later. Just a paragraph describing this period of my life. A good way to begin this is to start writing the sentence, "This is a time of my life when," and then complete that thought. From there, let the writing take over. Trust your instincts. Write it down as it comes, describing this period of your life. We're going to take 5 minutes for this part of the period log. So what I want you to do is set your timer for 5 minutes. And when you hear me say the words in the silence, stop the video, start your timer, and begin writing. This is a time of my life when, and then allow the writing to continue till your timer sounds when you restart the video. Let's do that now in the silence, So having now encapsulated what this period of our life is all about, kind of from inside, we want to collect some details, some specifics about this period of our life. So I'm going to name some categories. You might want to take note of these. I'll give you a word, write that word down, and I'll explain what that means so that when you do the exercise, you'll have this checklist to refer to. So the first category is persons. Write the word persons down in your checklist. And ask yourself as you're doing this, well, who are the main persons in my life during this period? The ones that I'm most involved with, the ones I'm most concerned about. The next item is called works. What am I doing during this period of my life? What are the chief occupations I have, the chief external activities that I'm engaged in? And especially those that are important to me, that give me some sense of return, of feeling, of impact on my life. Then we have the term society. Society refers to groups of persons that we are involved with. Groups can be very specific, such as a fraternal order like the Lions Club. They can be more nebulous, like that group of people that gets together on Thursday night for the book club, and some people are there and some people aren't there sometimes, but it's a group that we identify with. They can be large groups like our ethnic heritage. We may be aware, conscious of having an ethnic identity. So we want to think about this period of our lives and ask ourselves, what are the principal groups that I'm involved with during this period of my life? Next, we want to consider our body. Our bodies are the vehicles that carry us through life. In a sense, they are ourselves, but in a sense, they are also separate from ourselves. And what they experience often has a profound impact on how we see ourselves. So you're going to want to ask yourself, what's been going on with your body during this period of your life? Have there been any significant body events that have affected this period of your life? Are you aware of your body image and how that makes you feel, how that influences your sense of identity? Think about your body. Think about where you are with it, where it is with you, and you want to describe those briefly and also account for your attitude toward it. There may have been events that occurred, single events that came from out of the blue that had an impact on you during this period of your life. The death of a loved one, perhaps, a marriage, a wedding, a birth, an automobile accident. So you want to ask yourself, have there been any significant events, or have I found myself in any significant situations that have really impacted me during this period of my life? And we want to make a list of those, and we want to simply describe what our current attitude toward those is. Have there been any figures, persons, real or imagined, current or historical, that mean a lot to us during this period of our life. Usually what we mean by this are religious figures such as Jesus or Muhammad. But these can also be persons that are not quite so otherworldly. Perhaps a political figure who has inspired us, Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King. Perhaps we've been touched by a literary character or a character from a movie who is really somebody we've tried to identify with, or with whom we have felt an identification. We call these wisdom figures because they are larger than life in a sense. And so we want to just think about, have there been any of these in my life during this period? Who are they? And what's been my attitude toward them? And then we want to ask about the meaning of our lives. We all seek for our lives to be meaningful. And at various times in our lives, we understand our lives to be meaningful in different ways. So how is my life meaningful to me during this period? What's it all about? What's going on? Why am I doing the things I'm doing? What am I searching for? Those big questions. So we want to capture those. So persons, works, society, the body, events, wisdom figures, and meaning. We're going to take 20 minutes for this phase of the period log. You don't want to go into depth with any one of these figures. You don't want to walk off down a rabbit hole, so to speak. What you want to do is identify them and identify your feelings about them at this period of your life, your attitude. What is your subjective relationship to these figures, these things, these persons, these groups, to your body during this period of your life? So we'll do this period, as I said, we'll do this section of the period log for 20 minutes. So I want you to set your timer and for 20 minutes, and then pause the video, start your timer, and begin to list and begin to catalog the main persons, events, groups, etc., that are important to you during this time of your life. Let's do that now in the silence, in the silence. As we were writing the period log, we were doing so with words. We were doing it discursively, the level of conscious thinking, though we were allowing ourselves, I think, to allow memories and issues to well up, and especially to be in touch with our inner feelings. We want to now do a parallel exercise. It's called the period image. So take a fresh sheet of paper and write the words period image at the top with today's date. In the period image, we want to re-enter the twilight state. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to become relaxed. We're going to allow our thinking to drop. We're not going to consciously think of anything specific, but allow images to rise, allow ideas to rise. Perhaps these are going to be visual images, or they're going to be sounds, or they're going to be feelings that we have. Perhaps you'll find yourself thinking about a scenario that you weren't aware you were going to be thinking about. Whatever it is, what you want to do is note it, open your eyes briefly, record it, and then return to the twilight state and allow the process to continue. We are going into a deeper level of awareness now, and we're allowing that level of ourselves to express itself in the terms or in the form of twilight imagery. We'll take 10 minutes for this. So again, you'll be sitting quietly, eyes closed, allowing your mind to present to you whatever it presents, and then briefly recording, opening your eyes, briefly recording what has happened, closing our eyes, re-entering that twilight state, and re-recording. Set your timer for 10 minutes now, and then pause the video and enter the twilight state and enter the twilight imagery recording in the silence, in the silence. We want now to reread both of the exercises that we've just completed. So you're going to be rereading your period log. Read it slowly enough that you enter into the atmosphere you felt when you were writing it. And pay attention to any feelings that arise while you're reading, or try to remember any feelings you had while you were writing, recall them, or see if any further insights or ideas or recollections come to you while you're reading, and make note of those at the end. Skip a line at the end of the period log and make note of those. Then you want to do the same thing for the period image entry. Reread it, take note of any feelings that come up. Perhaps more images will present themselves to you, and make note of those at the bottom of the period image entry. We'll allow ourselves then to extend the period log and the period image in this way, and we'll take 10 minutes to combine both of those. So you're going to stop the video, set your timer for 10 minutes, reread and record in the silence, in the silence. So we want to do one more writing activity, one more exercise. When we consider the current period of our lives, we've done the period log and the period image. And now we're going to do an activity called life correlation. So you want to write that phrase, life correlation, at the top of a sheet of paper and put today's date. I mentioned that one of the principles of holistic depth psychology, or one of the goals of holistic depth psychology and the intensive journal, is to help us integrate the various levels on which we experience our lives. And so the life correlation activity is designed to help us integrate what occurred in the period log with what occurred in the period image. And the way we'll do that is we'll sit quietly. You've now read both over again. Hold the contents of each one in each hand, so to speak, balancing the period log in one hand, the period image in the other. And we want to allow them to speak to each other, to relate to each other, to co-relate or correlate. We don't want to think about them consciously to analyze the relationship, but rather to feel the two entries side by side and allow a correlation to arise. And as that does, we sit with it, we let it develop, and then we record that on the page called Life Correlation. Whatever comes, whatever insights, whatever thoughts, whatever feelings arise, we record those. We'll take 10 minutes to do the life correlation. So you want to set your timer for 10 minutes and pause the video Sit quietly in the silence, considering the entries, both entries you've made now, the period log and the period image, and allow them to correlate, to speak to each other, recording what develops. Let's do that now in the silence, in the silence. As I mentioned, the life correlation, it's one of the methods, it illustrates one of the techniques of the intensive journal in that it seeks to integrate our lives as they are experienced at various levels. This was a first experience of that. In the journal workshop, you would have many more similar activities. Perhaps you've gained some insight or gotten a better sense of where you are now in your life from doing these activities. At the very least, you have stirred some energy, and that energy is undoubtedly going to show itself in your life. It's going to play itself out at various levels. Another of the techniques that we've experienced in the intensive journal is the movement up and down, starting with our surface of our lives and then going down a little bit to that area of twilight imagery and coming back up. Progoff used a metaphor of the well and the waters in the underground stream to illustrate this process. Okay, he likens our lives to being lived on the surface of a well. That's who we are. We're all wells. The surface of the waters is where we live our lives for the most part, but we have depths. The waters go deeper. And what exists on the surface is in part a product of what the water that comes up from underneath. And so ultimately, our water is fed by an underground stream, a source that's greater than ourselves, that contributes to our life. And the process or the method of the journal throughout the workshops is to take us further down into our well and bring us up again to help us continuously integrate our depths and our surfaces. A third motion of the journal, a third way it works, is kind of a back and forth on a timeline. We've been writing about now. If you continued in this particular journal workshop, your next series of activities would be about writing about your life as it has been in the past. This will help a person create or get a sense of the continuity of experiences in his or her life. As we mentioned, we're all different people at different times, and yet we're the same person. And we can get a better sense of how those different persons are the same person. A sense that our life has been moving in a direction all along, and it's trying to become something at each stage of our life. It's trying to become something now. And so the other dimension on the timeline is the future. And we have activities in the journal for helping us identify areas of future action, areas of future being, directions we may wish to develop as we move forward. You may have already had a sense of that as you worked in the period log. Something may have occurred to you that you want to take away and pursue. The workshops themselves, this has been a 90-minute activity, but a workshop occurs over a 12-hour period. Typically, that's broken down over 2 days, so 6 hours a day, with appropriate breaks and a time for lunch. This is true whether we do this online or whether we do it in person. You'll notice in a moment, I'm going to tell you where to find the schedule of workshops. And you'll notice that they are offered online in a variety of formats, trying to accommodate persons' schedules. So you can take them consecutively over a period of days, or sometimes they're offered on a weekend, the next weekend, like that. So there are a variety of schedules to fit your schedule, if you will. But let's learn a little bit more about how we can learn a little bit more. Two places to go are our website and our social media sites. Our webpage is www.intensivejournal.org. Intensive Journal, one word, www.intensivejournal.org. And when you go there, refer to the drop-down menu on the upper left. Click on that, and the first place you want to look is called Quick Summary. There you'll see an overview of the Intensive Journal program, more information than I've provided you, additional information, and it will allow you to click on a bullet called Explore Other Options, which will take you further. Going back to the home page, there in the drop-down menu, or on the page itself, there is a button called Learn More. And if you click there, you can go to find out where you can buy books and audio CDs by Ira Progoff, if you're interested in that. You can also read life histories. These are short historical sketches written by persons who have taken intensive journal workshops, excuse me, in which they explain and put forth how their journal work has affected their lives as a whole, and especially as it's affected their lives in different areas of their lives. You can get onto our mailing list. That's at the bottom of every page, and so are the links to our social media. And we encourage you to sign up for our mailing list so that you can get updates on workshop events and locations and further developments in the intensive journal program. You'll find articles written by scholars, some written by Dr. Progoff, about the intensive journal method. And you'll find short endorsements, brief endorsements by workshop attendees. Next, if you click on the General Workshops heading, you'll find the page that says Take a Workshop. You get there from the home page to the button that says Workshops. It's in the middle of the home page. And when you click there, you'll see first a description of the 3 different modules: the Life Context Workshop, which we've been working in, the Depth Contact Workshop, and the Life Integration Workshop. You'll also see a map of the United States, and if you scroll further, a map of the world. And if you click on areas of that map, you can see where workshops are being offered and scheduled. You'll see the locations, the dates, the name of the workshop leader, etc., things like that. And below that is a legend that explains, what all of the different acronyms and abbreviations in that workshop schedule refer to. You can also register for any workshop, and there's a phone number there for you to do that. Please note that while we're doing these on Zoom, the places are not as significant as they would be if we were offering the workshop in person. For instance, you find a workshop that's offered in Denver. Well, with Zoom, you can take that workshop no matter where you are in the world, and we invite you to do that. The city is listed there because the starting and stopping times will coordinate with that time zone. So it's important to know what time zone the workshop is operating in, so you can adjust it to the time zone you're in. As I mentioned, at the bottom of every page are links to our blog, our mailing list, our YouTube site, Instagrams, Facebook, and Twitter. And we encourage you to click on those, get involved in those, see what's there. So we hope to hear from you. We hope you'll become further involved in the intensive journal program. Certainly, at least sign up for the mailing list. Perhaps read some articles or some endorsements on the web page or on the Facebook page, look at the videos, and hopefully sign up for a workshop. If you have any questions, you can email info@intensivejournal.org, or you can call 800-221-5844. I hope our time together has been useful for you, that it's intrigued your interest, that you'll continue to look into the intensive journal. But mostly I hope that it's helped you understand where you are in your life so that you will feel more self-satisfaction and greater creativity, which is our purpose and the intention of the journal as a whole. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing more of you. Bye.